Did Mr. Ricky want a ball player who's afraid to fight back? I asked. No, Jackie said. He wanted a ball player with guts enough not to fight back. Jackie went back to his mail and I put my uniform on. I stood in front of the mirror and looked at myself. The shirt was big on me, floppy all over, but so was Jackie's. That's just the way they wore them in 1947, I guess. I still looked great, like a Dodger. I was perfect. I was perfecting my batting stance in the mirror when I noticed Ant behind me. You ain't no player, he said, pointing a finger at me. Let's get something straight. You're here to serve the players. You're just a bat boy. I'm your boss. From now on, I want you to call me Batman. Batman? I asked. I couldn't help but laugh. Yeah, Batman, he replied. What's so funny about that? Nothing, I lied. At least he didn't insist on calling me Robin. Let's get to work, Ant said, hauling out some big boxes before Spaulding. He opened the boxes, and I could see there were hundreds of baseballs inside. What do we do with them, Batman? I asked. What do you think we do with them? He said, handing me a pen and a piece of paper. This is Gianfrido's signature. Copy it, and remember, 2 D's in front of in Gianfrido. I looked at the piece of paper. It said Al Gianfrido on its smooth, flowing letters. That Bat Boys autograph the balls? I asked Ant incredulously. He looked at me as if I was stupid. Well, don't you think Al Gianfrido has better things to do with his time than sit around signing baseballs? Ant left again. I sat down at the table, picked up a ball, and began to write. Al Gianfrido. I'd never done this before. It's hard to write on a baseball, I realized right away. Al Gianfrido. There isn't a lot of room between the seams. Al Gianfrido. Worse, I was used to writing on a flat surface, so when I got to the Frido part and the ball curved down, my hand didn't move down with it. Al Gianfrido. I kept messing up and fuming at Ant. He probably gave me the Gianfrido baseballs because it was one of the longest names on the team. Al Gianfrido. I remembered the name in one of my baseball books back home. It said he was a little-known utility outfielder who became famous after he made one of the most spectacular catches in baseball history. Al Gianfrido. I was doing my best to control myself when another white kid walked into the clubhouse. I'm the new bat boy, the kid said. Position has already been filled, I informed him. But over the phone, somebody told me, try again next season, I suggested. The kid left dejectedly. After I wrote Al Gianfrido about a zillion times, my hand felt like a claw. As I was finishing up the last few Gianfridos, Jackie sauntered by and looked over my shoulder. Nice handwriting, he chuckled. He said he was going to go out on the field and stretch a little. I felt like plunging my hand in some ice water, but Ant showed up again. We got out the bats and balls, put clean towels in each locker, and soap and shampoo in the showers. What about the batting helmets? I asked Ant. Batting helmets? He looked at me curiously. They didn't have batting helmets in 1947. Where do you come from, Mars? Ant asked with a mocking tone in his voice. Sorry, I said. You're pretty stupid, aren't you, boy? No, I replied. I didn't think that telling him I got all A's and 1B on my last report card would do a lot of good. Oh yeah, he challenged. Can you read, boy? Can you spell cat? C-A-T, I said. Hey, you're a regular genius. I bet you're so dumb you don't even know who the president is. The president? My mind raced. We learned all the presidents in school. I knew that the president during World War II was Franklin Roosevelt, but the war ended in 1945, and this was 1947. I scrambled to think of the presidents who followed Roosevelt. Wasn't sure of the order. Kennedy, Reagan, Nixon, Ford, Johnson, Bush, Eisenhower, Carter, Clinton, Truman. Truman? I guessed. Had to think about it, didn't you? Ant smirked. You are stupid. At least I got the answer right. I breathed a sigh of relief, and Ant looked like he was getting ready to humiliate me some more. But the Dodgers started drifting into the clubhouse. "Hey, Pee-wee," Ant shouted cheerily. "Dixie, Scoonge, we gonna go all the way this year?" Ant knew all the players, and they all greeted him warmly. Everybody ignored me. I guess they were used to African Americans doing things for them, so Black Bat Boy wasn't any big deal. Ant didn't make any move to introduce me to anybody. I just went about my business, doing the chores he told me to do. The clubhouse chatter was loud, funny, and dirty. I don't think I'd ever heard so many four-letter words before. The Dodgers seemed to be a really loose team, like one big happy family. Jackie came in from the door leading to the dugout. Suddenly, all conversation stopped. I was pretty sure the other Dodgers had been introduced to Jackie during spring training, but maybe the reality of seeing him in the locker room on opening day threw them. Everybody stared at Jackie like he was an intruder. The silence was oppressive. "Gentlemen," Jackie finally cleared his throat and announced, "as long as I have your attention, it seems like this would be a good time to make a short statement. Some of you may not like me because I'm a Negro. You certainly have the right to feel that way. I'm not concerned with your liking or disliking me. All I ask is that you respect me as a human being. Regardless of how you feel about me, I hope we can work together on the field. Thank you." The players went back to their conversations, but more quietly. Some whispered among themselves. Nobody came over to talk to Jackie, and he didn't approach any of them. I didn't know if the Dodgers felt the same way I did, but to me, tension was hanging over the clubhouse like a dark cloud. They no longer looked like a team. They looked like strangers getting ready for work. I scanned the clubhouse while I swept the floor. Pee-wee Reese, the shortstop, was a little guy, but he looked like he was one of the team leaders. Carl Furillo, an outfielder, looked very serious. He was quietly rubbing something, it looked like a big bone, over the barrel of his bat over and over again. Hugh Casey, one of the relief pitchers, took a quick swig from a bottle of whiskey and then stashed it in his locker behind some other stuff. An old white guy with glasses was sitting on top of a trunk sipping a Coke. I didn't know who he was, so I walked over to Jackie and asked him if somebody should kick the guy out of the clubhouse. "That wouldn't be such a good idea," he replied. "He's the manager of the team, Barney Shotton." Dixie Walker, another outfielder, was sitting on a stool in front of his locker writing on a pad of paper. Must be a letter to his mother or his wife, I guessed. My dad had a Dixie Walker baseball card in his collection, so I knew a little bit about him. He was a great hitter, that was for sure. He led the National League with a 3.57 average in 1944. Dixie's dad and his uncle both played in the big leagues before him, and his younger brother Harry was a star for the St. Louis Cardinals. Dixie finished what he was writing, and he walked over to Hugh Casey's locker. Walker whispered something to Casey, showed him the pad of paper, and handed him the pen. Casey read what was written on the paper and signed it. Whatever Dixie wrote on the paper, it wasn't a letter to his mom. I was curious. Walker then went over to Bobby Brigham, who was strapping on some catcher's gear. Brigham listened to what Dixie had to say, and he signed the paper too. Must be some kind of petition or something, I gathered. Next, Dixie came over to Eddie Stanky's locker. Stanky, I knew, played second base for the Dodgers. When Dixie handed him the pen to sign, Stanky shook his head no and walked away. That was odd. As players were starting to file out the clubhouse to warm up on the field, Pee-wee Reese approached Dixie and asked to see the pad. Dixie handed it to him, and Reese read it. He looked over at Walker, said a few words, and then he tore off the top sheet of the paper and ripped it in half. Reese threw the two pieces in a trash can and walked out of the clubhouse. I was dying to know what was on that paper. I waited until all the players had left the clubhouse, and then I reached into the trash and fished it out. This is what it said. "We, the undersigned players of the Brooklyn Dodgers, agree that we wish to be traded rather than to take the field with a colored man on our team." Underneath that, there were the signatures of Dixie Walker, Bobby Brigham, a few other players. I thought about saving the paper for my collection of baseball memorabilia back home. Those autographs would be worth a lot of money someday, but I decided they were guys I didn't want to have in my collection. I crumpled up the paper and tossed it back in the trash.